The grand chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and light orbiting a star that belonged to no one. Inside, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered in curved rows that stretched toward a ceiling lost in shadows. At the center stood Ambassador Giwan, her dark suit simple compared to the elaborate robes and armor of those around her. She had been standing there for 3 hours while the council debated humanity's fate. Chancellor Vrixdel rose from his elevated platform. His species, the Ultheri, had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 50,000 years. His skin shimmered with colors that humans had no names for, and his 4 eyes fixed on Giwan with something that might have been pity. He held a data tablet that glowed with formal script. "The Council has reached its decision," Vrixdel announced. His voice echoed through translation devices in 1,000 languages. Humanity stands accused of 17 violations of territorial law, 43 counts of unauthorized expansion, and the dangerous development of restricted technologies. 27 member species have signed the accord. The decision is unanimous among the voting members. Guan didn't move. She had expected this. Her government had warned her it was coming. Still, hearing it made real sent a chill down her spine that she refused to show. "The human species will surrender all colonies beyond the Sol system within 72 standard hours," Vrixdel continued. "All military vessels will be decommissioned under Council's supervision. Humanity will submit to an oversight government appointed by this Council. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war, and the Council will respond with appropriate force." Around the chamber, aliens whispered and clicked and hummed to each other. Some looked satisfied. Others seemed uncomfortable. A few species had abstained from the vote, their representatives sitting in silence. But the decision had been made. 27 civilizations, some of them millions of years old, decided that humanity needed to be controlled. G1 pulled out a small device and began taking notes. The stylus moved across the screen with soft clicking sounds that seemed very loud in the waiting silence. She wrote down key points, checking details, making sure she had the timeline correct. 72 hours. Surrender all colonies. Submit to oversight. She nodded to herself and put the device away. Ambassador Juan Vrixdel said, his tone sharp. "Do you understand what has been declared?" "Yes," Guan said. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. "You've declared war on humanity if we don't surrender our freedom within 3 days. I've got it all written down. Very clear. Thank you for being so specific about the terms." The chamber erupted in noise. Some species made sounds of approval. Others seemed shocked at her casual tone. Commander Tavreen, of the Dralkesh Armada, stood up, his scaled face twisted in what might have been anger or satisfaction. "You understand you have no choice," Tavreen said. "We have studied your species. Your fleet numbers 12,000 ships. The combined council fleets number over 400,000. Your colonies are scattered and poorly defended. Your technology is primitive. You will comply, or you will be destroyed." Jiwan looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. It wasn't a nervous smile or a frightened smile. It was the kind of smile someone gives when they know something you don't. "Message received," she said. "We'll get back to you." She turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the stunned silence. No one tried to stop her. The council had expected begging, or anger, or desperate negotiation. They got a woman taking notes and walking away like she'd just attended a boring meeting. The door sealed behind her. Inside the chamber, the council members looked at each other in confusion. That was not how species reacted to declarations of war. 3 hours later, the message reached Earth. President Minho sat in his office in New Seoul, looking out at a city that stretched from horizon to horizon. Towers of glass and steel reached toward the sky. Ships moved through the air in ordered streams. Below, trains shot through tunnels at speeds that would have seemed impossible 2 centuries ago. Humanity had come so far so fast. His communication officer appeared on the screen, her face serious. "Mr. President, the Council has issued their ultimatum. 72 hours to surrender all colonies and submit to their authority. Ambassador Jiwan is on her way back now." Minho leaned back in his chair. For a moment he was quiet. Then he started laughing. Not a small chuckle, but genuine, deep laughter that made his sides hurt. His staff looked at him like he'd gone crazy. "Sir," the communication officer asked carefully. "They really don't know," Minho said, wiping his eyes. "They actually think we're going to surrender. They think we're scared." He shook his head, still grinning. "How long did our intelligence say they've been planning this?" 2 years, sir. Since we established the colony at Tau Ceti." 2 years? Minho repeated. "And in all that time, with all their spies and their observations and their studies, they never figured it out." He stood up and walked to the window. "They see 12,000 ships and think that's our whole fleet. They see 47 colonies and think that's all we have. They look at us and see children playing at civilization." "What are your orders, sir?" the officer asked. Minho turned back to the screen. His smile was gone now, replaced by something harder. "Send a message to all colonial governors, all fleet commanders, and all military installations. Authorization code Sigma, full deployment. They want to see what humanity can do when we're actually trying. Let's show them." "Oh, sir. Are you sure? That's going to reveal everything we've been building." "They declared war," Minho said quietly. "They made their choice. Now we make ours. And send a message to Admiral Suho. Tell him the Seoul Defense Fleet is now active. I want every ship ready. Every weapon online. Every soldier at their post. What should we tell the public?" Minho thought about that. Billions of humans across dozens of worlds would wake up tomorrow to learn they were at war. They would be scared. They would have questions. They deserved the truth. Tell them the Council has declared war on humanity. Tell them we have 72 hours to surrender. And tell them, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Tell them humanity doesn't surrender. Tell them we've been preparing for this since we first looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. Tell them it's time to show the galaxy what we really are. The officer nodded and disappeared from the screen. Minho stood alone in his office, looking out at the city below. Somewhere up there, beyond the sky, ancient civilizations were preparing their fleets. They were confident in their victory. They had fought wars for millions of years. They had weapons that could destroy planets, but they had never fought humans before. They had never faced a species that had spent 10,000 years fighting itself. Learning from every defeat, improving after every victory, they didn't understand that humanity's greatest enemy had always been humanity, and that war had made them very, very good at survival. Minho picked up his phone and made one more call. When Admiral Suho answered, Minho said just 3 words: "Show them hell." The 72-hour countdown had begun. The Council expected surrender. They were going to get something very different. Commander Tavern studied the holographic display, floating above his command table. The Dralkesh warship Eternal Victory hummed around him, its engines powering up for the jump to Alpha Centauri. Around his flagship, 3,000 ships waited in formation. It was more firepower than most species had in their entire military. "They still haven't responded to the ultimatum," his tactical officer reported. 40 hours have passed. No communication from Earth or any human colony. Tavrin nodded slowly. He had fought in 16 wars across his long career. He knew how species reacted when faced with overwhelming force. First came denial, then desperate negotiation, then finally, acceptance. Humanity was still in the denial phase. They would learn. "What does our intelligence show about Alpha Centauri's defenses?" he asked. The tactical officer brought up new images. 78 ships in orbit, mostly frigates and destroyers. Outdated designs. Their largest vessel is barely half the size of our smallest cruiser. Ground defenses are minimal. 3 orbital platforms with kinetic weapons. Population of 4 million across 2 planets and 6 stations. "It's pathetic," muttered the weapons officer. "We could destroy them in an hour." "We won't need an hour," Tavern said. "This is a demonstration, not a massacre. We jump in, they see our numbers, they surrender. Clean and simple. The Council wants to avoid unnecessary bloodshed." He looked around at his bridge crew. "Remember, these are primitives. 300 years in space. They don't understand real war yet. We're here to educate them. The navigation officer spoke up. Sir, the fleet is ready. All ships report jump drives charged. Begin the jump, Tavrine ordered. Time to teach humanity their place in the galaxy. Space twisted and tore. 3,000 Dralkish warships vanished from the staging area and reappeared near Alpha Centauri, their hulls gleaming in the light of the binary stars. It was an impressive sight, a wall of metal and weapons stretching across space immediately. Sensors began scanning the human defenses. The 78 ships were there, hanging in orbit around the main colony world. They were small, ugly things. Rectangular holes covered in what looked like armor plating, no elegant curves like proper warships. They looked like flying bricks. Open a channel, Tavrine commanded. Let's give them a chance to surrender. Communication officer nodded. A moment later, the main screen showed a young human woman in a gray uniform. She looked barely old enough to be a soldier. Her name tag read Lieutenant Hygiene. She was sitting in what appeared to be a combat information center, with other humans working at stations behind her. This is Commander Tavrine of the Dralkesh Armada. Acting under authority of the Galactic Council, he began formally. You are ordered to power down all weapons, lower your shields, and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. You have 10 minutes to comply. The human lieutenant looked at something off-screen. Then she looked back at Tavrine. She was smiling. Why was she smiling? Surrender, she said. No, you should have brought more ships. Then she cut the connection. Tavrine stared at the blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew sat in stunned silence. More ships? They had brought 3,000 warships against 78 defenders. What was she talking about? Sir, the tactical officer said slowly, the human ships are moving. The holographic display updated. The human vessels were breaking orbit, but not running away. They were forming up into a pattern that Tavrine didn't recognize. 3 groups of 26 ships each, spreading out in a triangle formation. They're actually going to fight, the weapons officer said, disbelief in his voice. They're insane. Arm all weapons, Tavrine ordered. If they want to die, we'll accommodate them. Target the lead ships. Fire when ready. The first Dralkesh cruiser fired its main energy cannon. A beam of superheated plasma that could cut through most shields like paper. It shot across space toward the nearest human ship, a boxy frigate that made no attempt to dodge. Then something impossible happened. The plasma beam hit the human ship and bent. It curved around the vessel like water flowing around a rock, then shot back toward the Dralkesh fleet. The cruiser that had fired barely had time to react before its own weapon hit it square in the engineering section. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. What was that? Tavrine shouted. What kind of shield is that? Unknown, sir, the tactical officer said, his scales pale with shock. I've never seen anything like it. Fire at will. Across the Dralkish fleet, thousands of missiles launched. They streaked toward the human ships like a swarm of angry insects. The humans would have to respond now. No shield could stop that many missiles, but the human ships didn't even try to shoot the missiles down. Instead, they accelerated. Hard. Tavrine watched in amazement as the ugly brick-like vessels pulled maneuvers that should have liquefied their crews. They spun and dove and weaved through space like fighters, not capital ships. The missiles tried to track them. Most lost their targets and exploded harmlessly in empty space. The few missiles that did hit the human armor and bounced off. Some exploded, leaving black scars on the hull plating, but none penetrated. What were those ships made of? Then the humans fired back. Their weapons looked primitive. Simple railguns, firing solid metal projectiles. Nothing sophisticated. But Tavrine quickly realized that sophistication didn't matter when your targeting was perfect. The human guns fired, and Dralkish ships died. Every shot hit exactly where it needed to. Engines, weapons, command centers. The projectiles moved so fast that shields didn't even slow them down. They punched through armor like it wasn't there and exploded inside the ships. Evasive maneuvers. Tavrine screamed. All ships, evasive maneuvers? But the Dralkesh warships were too slow. They had been built for power, not speed. The human ships danced around them, firing constantly. Each shot destroyed or crippled another vessel. The space around Alpha Centauri filled with debris and bodies. Tavrine watched his fleet die. He had been in 16 wars, fought against dozens of species, and never seen anything like this. The humans moved like they could predict every shot before it was fired. They coordinated like a single organism. And their weapons, those supposedly primitive kinetic guns, killed with terrifying efficiency. "Sir, we've lost 600 ships," the tactical officer reported. His voice shook. "And we haven't destroyed a single enemy vessel." "How long has it been?" Tavrine asked. 20 minutes, sir?" 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, these primitive humans had destroyed a fifth of his fleet. The Council's intelligence had been completely wrong. These weren't primitives. These were predators. "All ships, retreat," Tavrine ordered. "Jump back to the rally point. Now." "Sir, the Council ordered us to." "The Council doesn't understand what we're facing," Tavrine roared. "If we stay, they'll kill us all. Retreat." Space tore open again as the Dralkesh fleet jumped away. Of the 3,000 ships that had arrived, only 900 made it out. The rest floated dead around Alpha Centauri. Monuments to overconfidence. On the UHSF Resilience, Lieutenant Hyjin watched the enemy fleet run. Around her, the bridge crew cheered. They had won. 78 ships against 3,000, and they had won. "Casualties?" she asked. 5 ships took damage, ma'am. 17 wounded, 3 dead. The Dauntless lost its starboard railgun. Everything else is operational. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Hyjin ordered. "Tell them the Dralkesh have been repelled. Alpha Centauri is secure." She paused, thinking about what to say to the Council. They needed to understand that this war was a mistake, that humanity wasn't going to be an easy victim. "And send a message to the Council station," she added. "Tell them. Was that your best?" Back on Earth, President Minho received the battle report. He read it twice, making sure he understood the numbers correctly. Then he called an emergency meeting of his military staff. "The Council sent 3,000 ships," he told them. "We destroyed 2,100. They won't make that mistake again. Next time, they'll send more. A lot more." Admiral Suho leaned forward. "How much more, sir?" "Best guess? 10 times as many. Maybe more. They're going to try to overwhelm us with numbers." "Can we handle that?" one of the generals asked. Minho looked at the star chart on the wall. Earth sat at its center, surrounded by human colonies. Beyond them, Council space stretched into the darkness. Hundreds of species. Thousands of worlds. Millions of ships. "I don't know," he admitted. "But we're about to find out. Send orders to all our hidden shipyards. Start production at maximum capacity. If the Council wants a numbers game, we'll give them one." The war had truly begun, and both sides were about to learn just how wrong their assumptions had been. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted 14 hours. Representatives shouted at each other in a dozen languages, while translators worked overtime. At the center of it all stood Chancellor Vrixtel, his colors shifting rapidly between anger and confusion. 3,000 ships? One ambassador screamed. They destroyed 3,000 ships with 78. "The Dralkesh must have made tactical errors," another insisted. "No primitive species could. They're not primitive." Commander Tavrine stood from his seat, scales still pale from the battle. "I was there. I saw what they did. Their technology is different from ours, but it's not primitive. And their tactics." He trailed off, remembering the way human ships had moved. "They fight like nothing I've ever seen." Vrixtel raised his hands for silence. "Enough. The question now is what we do next. We cannot allow this defeat to stand. If one species can challenge the Council's authority, others will follow. Perhaps we should negotiate," suggested Ambassador Krev from the Velpar Union. "Offer them better terms. This war doesn't have to." "No," Vrixtel said firmly. "We declared war. If we back down now, the Council becomes meaningless. We must respond with overwhelming force." 6 species have agreed to combine their fleets. 30,000 ships will jump to Earth itself. The humans will see our might and surrender. Tivrine wanted to object. He wanted to tell them that numbers wouldn't matter, that the humans were prepared for this. But he stayed silent. The council had made its decision. All he could do was watch. While the council argued, humanity worked. Captain Dong Yun sat in the cockpit of his stealth ship, the Shadow Runner, floating in deep space light years from any colony. His ship was invisible to sensors, using technology the council didn't know existed. Around him, 20 other stealth ships waited in silence. Team 2 report, he said quietly into his com. We've mapped all military installations in Sector 7, came the reply. Forwarding data now, Team 5. Sector 12 complete. Found 3 major shipyards and 2 fleet assembly points. O'Dongan smiled. For the past 2 weeks, while the council prepared their invasion, human stealth ships had been everywhere. They had mapped every major military base within 200 light years of Earth. They knew where the council stored their ships, where they manufactured weapons, where they trained their soldiers. The council thought they were preparing a surprise attack. They had no idea humanity had been watching them the whole time. Good work, everyone, Dong Yun said. Return to base. The Admiral will want this data before the council makes their move. On Earth, in a laboratory deep beneath the surface, Dr. Yunji examined pieces of a destroyed Dralkesh ship. Her team had recovered dozens of components from the debris around Alpha Centauri. Now they were taking them apart to understand how they worked. Interesting, she murmured, studying a power core. This design is at least 10,000 years old. Maybe older. Is that a problem? Her assistant asked. Not a problem, Yunji said. Just ... sad. The council species are ancient. They've had millions of years to develop their technology, but they've stopped innovating. This power core is efficient, yes. Well designed, absolutely. But it's exactly the same design they were using 10,000 years ago. They found something that worked and never improved it. She turned to her assistant. You know what we used 20 years ago for power cores? Fusion reactors, half the size of this room. Know what we use now? Antimatter containment units you can hold in your hand. We improve constantly because we have to. The council never had to, so they stopped. Can we use their technology? Yunji smiled. Better than that? We can improve it. Get me Chief Engineer Wu Jin. I have an idea. 2 days later, Wu Jin stood on the bridge of a human warship, watching technicians install a modified Dralkesh power core. This is insane, one of the techs said. We're combining their power system with our weapons. It'll work, Wu Jin assured him. Dr. Yunji ran the numbers. We take their stable power generation and feed it into our railguns. We'll double our firing rate and increase projectile velocity by 30%. And if it doesn't work, then the ship explodes and we become a very bright star for about 3 seconds, Wu Jin said cheerfully. But I'm pretty sure it'll work. 70% sure, maybe 60. The tech looked horrified, but he kept working. This was war. Risks had to be taken. Far from Earth, the council fleet assembled. 30,000 ships from 6 different species hung in space, the largest fleet ever gathered in galactic history. The commanders had learned from the Dralkesh defeat. They brought heavy shields, powerful weapons, and overwhelming numbers. Surely the humans couldn't defeat this. Admiral Suho stood on the bridge of the UHSF Indomitable, watching his displays. His scouts had reported the council fleet's assembly. 30,000 ships were heading for Earth. It was time to show the council what humanity had really been building. All fleet elements. Report status, he ordered calmly. Responses flooded in from across the solar system. Ships hidden in asteroid belts powered up. Bases on Saturn's moons activated their weapons. The moon revealed gun batteries that had been disguised as research stations. And from the construction yards near Jupiter, the new ships emerged. Sir, his tactical officer said, voice full of awe. The new fleet is launching. I count 200,000 vessels. Suho allowed himself a small smile. Okay, let's give our guests a proper welcome. The Council fleet jumped into the solar system near Neptune's orbit. They came ready for battle, shields up, weapons charged. What they found waiting for them made their commanders freeze in shock. Ships everywhere. Not just the 12,000 vessels the Council knew about. Hundreds of thousands of them. They filled the solar system like stars, each one broadcasting a combat-ready signal. "This is impossible," breathed the Ultheri fleet commander. "Where did they all come from?" "Sir, we're detecting weapons platforms on multiple moons, automated defense systems throughout the asteroid belt, and something big near Jupiter." The big something was humanity's secret project. Massive factories built into the moons of Jupiter, producing ships at a rate that would have seemed impossible to the Council. While the Council built ships one at a time in traditional shipyards, humanity had invented automated assembly. Robots building ships. It wasn't elegant, but it was fast. "All ships advance," the Ultheri commander ordered. "We still have superior numbers." Forward. The Council fleet moved toward Earth. The human ships fell back, drawing them deeper into the solar system. The Council commanders thought the humans were retreating. They were wrong. Near Saturn, hidden facilities activated. Thousands of small objects launched into space. They looked like missiles, but they were something different. Autonomous hunter-killers. Each one controlled by an artificial intelligence designed for one purpose: destroy enemy ships. The drones swarmed the Council fleet like angry bees. They were small, hard to hit, and terrifyingly effective. They attached to enemy hulls and burned through armor with cutting lasers. They flew into engine ports and exploded. They were everywhere, and the Council ships couldn't stop them all. Defensive fire. Commanders screamed, "Kill those drones!" But while the Council ships were busy with the drones, the human warships attacked. They came from all sides, using the planet's gravity wells to slingshot themselves into attack runs. Their upgraded weapons, powered by modified Council technology, fired faster and hit harder than before. Then Jupiter itself became a weapon. Human ships herded Council vessels toward the planet's massive magnetic field. Any ship that got too close found their electronics frying, their systems failing. Ships died without a shot being fired, pulled into Jupiter's crushing gravity. The battle raged for 3 days. The Council fleet fought bravely, but they were fighting the entire solar system. Every planet, every moon, every piece of space had become a weapon. The humans had turned their home into a fortress, and the Council had walked right into it. On the 3rd day, the surviving Council ships retreated. Of the 30,000 that had arrived, only 2,000 escaped. 28,000 ships and millions of lives lost in a single battle. Admiral Suho watched them go. Around him, his crew was exhausted but victorious. They had defended Earth, but Suho knew this wasn't over. The Council would regroup. They would come again. "Send a message to the Council station," he ordered. "Tell them this. You declared war on us. We didn't want this. But since you insist, let us show you what war really looks like." He turned to his communication officer. "And send orders to Captain Dong-Yoon and the stealth fleet. It's time to take the fight to them. We're done playing defense." President Minho received the casualty reports with a heavy heart. 300 human ships destroyed. Thousands of soldiers dead. But they had one. Earth was safe. "For now, what's our next move?" Admiral Suho asked via secure channel. Minho looked at the star maps. The Council controlled thousands of systems. They had billions of soldiers, but they had made a mistake. They had shown humanity where they kept their military bases, where they built their ships. And now, humanity was going to use that information. "We hit them before they can regroup," Minho said. "Simultaneous strikes on 17 major bases. We take out their ability to build new ships. We capture their technology. And we show them that declaring war on humanity was the biggest mistake they ever made." The war was entering its next phase. And this time, humanity was bringing the fight to the Council. The attacks came at dawn across 17 worlds simultaneously. The Council never saw them coming. On Krevshan, it's the largest Ultheri shipyard in known space. Workers arrived for their morning shift to find human soldiers already inside the facility. Colonel Yemen stood in the control room, his Marines positioned at every entrance. They hadn't fired a single shot. They had simply walked in through security systems that couldn't detect their stealth suits. "Attention all personnel," Yemen announced over the facility-wide comm system. "This shipyard is now under human control. Do not attempt to resist. Do not attempt to send distress signals. Cooperate and no one gets hurt." The Eltheri supervisor, a four-eyed being named Krevtok, stared at the human in disbelief. "You can't do this. This facility builds 4,000 ships per year." "The Council will. The Council is busy," Yemen interrupted. "They're dealing with 16 other attacks happening right now. By the time they respond, we'll be long gone. Now, you have a choice. You can help us, or you can watch while we figure out your systems ourselves. Either way, we're taking control of every ship in this yard." Krevtok looked around at the human soldiers. They were calm, professional, and their weapons were pointed at nothing threatening. They didn't seem interested in killing anyone, just taking the ships. "How many vessels?" he asked quietly. 4,217, Yemen said, reading from a datapad. "All in various stages of completion. We'll finish the construction ourselves if we have to, but it would be faster with your help." In orbit above, human transport ships waited to receive the captured warships. It was the largest theft in galactic history. It was happening without a fight. While the military operations proceeded, another kind of war was being waged. Captain Yuna sat in a broadcasting station on Mars, surrounded by screens showing Council news feeds from across the galaxy. Her team had hacked into every major network. "We go live in 3 minutes, her technician said. "You sure about this?" "The Council has controlled information for too long," Yuna replied. "People deserve to know the truth." The broadcast began. It went out to every screen in Council space. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds saw the same message. Battle footage from Alpha Centauri and the Battle of Sol. Casualty numbers. Intercepted communications showing Council leaders in panic. And then Yuna herself appeared on screen. "Citizens of the Galactic Council," she began. "I am Captain Yuna of the United Human Space Force. Your leaders declared war on humanity. They told you we were dangerous, that we needed to be controlled. What they didn't tell you was that we never wanted this war. What they didn't show you was what happened when they attacked us." The screen filled with images of destroyed Council ships. At Alpha Centauri, they sent 3,000 warships against 78 defenders. They lost 2,000 ships. At Earth, they sent 30,000. They lost 28,000. Your sons and daughters are dying because your leaders were too proud to admit they made a mistake. She leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. "But this doesn't have to continue. Humanity offers peace to any species willing to accept it. Surrender your military forces, and we will help you rebuild. We will share technology. We will trade. We will be partners, not conquerors. This war can end today if you want it to." The broadcast ended. Across Council space, people watched in stunned silence. Some dismissed it as propaganda, but others began to question. Why were they fighting? What were they fighting for? Within hours, the Velpari Union withdrew from the war. Their ambassador sent a message to Earth requesting peace talks. The Krishti Collective followed. Then the Rendari, the Palvani, and 3 other species. The Council was fracturing. Chancellor Vrixdal watched his alliance crumble with growing fury. In 3 weeks, humanity had destroyed 2 major fleets, captured 17 military bases, stolen thousands of ships, and turned half the Council against him. This was supposed to be a simple war to put the newcomers in their place. Instead, it had become a disaster. "We must retreat to our core systems," his military advisor said. "Regroup." "And no," Vrixdal snarled. "No retreat. We gather what remains of our forces. Every ship, every soldier. We make our stand at Ulthri Prime. Let the humans come. We will show them that pride and honor still mean something." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. They were losing. The question now was whether they would surrender or fight to the end. Ambassador Giwan returned to the council chambers. But this time the mood was very different. Human ships filled the space around the station. Not threatening, just present. A reminder of power. She walked to the center of the room, to the same spot where she had stood when war was declared. Many of the seats were empty now. Species that had withdrawn from the war had left. Those that remained looked tired and afraid. The United Human Government offers the following terms, Juan said without preamble. Immediate cessation of all hostilities. War reparations to be paid in technology sharing and resource access. Full human membership in the Council with equal voting rights. Any species that accepts these terms will be welcomed as partners. Any species that continues to fight will be considered enemies. And if we refuse? Rixdal asked from his platform. G1 looked at him steadily. Then we will do what we must to protect ourselves and our allies. We will invade your core systems. We will remove your current leadership. We will end this war one way or another. The choice is yours. Most of the remaining council members voted to accept immediately. They had seen enough. But Rixdal and the Dralkesh High Command refused. They retreated to their homeworlds with what remained of their fleets, vowing to fight to the last on the human war room on Earth. President Minho faced the hardest decision of his life. General Taiyang stood before him, arguing for total destruction. We can end the Ulthari and Dralkesh threat permanently, Taiyang said. Turn their homeworlds to glass. Send a message to the galaxy that humanity cannot be challenged, and become the very monsters they feared we were. Ambassador Juwan countered. She stood on the other side of the room, her voice calm but firm. We're trying to show them we're better than they thought. Genocide won't prove that. Minho listened to both arguments. He understood Taeyang's position. The Althari and Dralkesh had started this war. They had killed thousands of humans. They deserved punishment. But Jiwan was right too. How humanity ended this war would define them for centuries to come. We invade, he decided finally. But we don't destroy. We go to Althari Prime and Dralkesh, Secundus. We remove their current leadership. We force surrender. But we preserve their civilizations. We show them that humanity knows how to win a war and how to win the peace that follows. Admiral Suho received his orders with mixed feelings. An invasion of two heavily defended homeworlds would be costly, but it was better than the alternative. Prepare the 1st, 3rd, and 7th fleets, he ordered. We move in 72 hours, and send a message to Commander Soyen. Tell her to prepare the ground forces. This is going to be the hardest fight we've faced yet. Soyen read the orders in her barracks on Mars. Around her, 10,000 Marines prepared for deployment. These were the best soldiers humanity had, trained for exactly this kind of operation. Urban warfare on an alien world against a desperate enemy? Listen up, she called out to her troops. We're going into the Hornet's Nest. The Ulthari and Dralkesh know we're coming. They'll fight hard. But remember your training. Minimize civilian casualties. Take prisoners when possible. We're not there to destroy their civilization. We're there to save it from its own leaders. One of her sergeants raised a hand. Ma'am, what if they don't surrender? Soyen met his eyes. Then we make them surrender. But we do it the right way. We show them that humanity fights with honor even when our enemies don't. That's what separates us from them. It's in his palace on Ulthari Prime. Chancellor Vrixdal watched the approaching human fleet on his displays. 50,000 ships were coming. His own forces numbered barely 5,000. The outcome was certain, but still, he would fight. Pride demanded it. History demanded it. Even if the cause was lost, the Ulthari would show the galaxy they could not be easily defeated. All forces prepare for battle, he ordered. Let them come. Let them see that we do not fear death. His military advisor looked at him sadly. Chancellor, we could still surrender. Save our people. And admit that we were wrong. Vrixdal's colors shifted to angry red. Never. We fight. We die if we must. But we maintain our honor. The advisor said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The end was coming. Everyone knew it. The human fleet entered orbit around Altheri Prime. On Dralkesh, Secundus, a similar scene played out. The final battle of the war was about to begin, and both sides knew it would be brutal. But while the Altheri and Dralkesh prepared to fight to the death, humanity prepared to do something harder: win without destroying. It was the difference between conquest and liberation, and it would determine what kind of species humanity would become in the eyes of the UHS. The invasion of Altheri Prime began at sunrise. Commander Soyan's Marines descended from orbit in armored dropships, landing in the capital city while human warships fought the remaining Altheri fleet above. The city was beautiful, with towers of crystal and metal that caught the morning light. Soyan almost felt guilty about bringing war to such a place. Remember, she told her troops over the come? Precision strikes only. We're here for the palace and military installations. Avoid civilian areas. Anyone who surrenders is to be treated with respect. The fighting was brutal. All three palace guards fought with desperate courage, defending their emperor to the last. Street by street, building by building, Soyan's Marines advanced. They used non-lethal weapons when possible, stunning rather than killing. When they had to use lethal force, they did so with regret. It took 3 days. 3 days of urban warfare, of close-quarters combat, of Marines fighting through corridors and across rooftops. Human soldiers died. Many more Altheri died. But slowly, steadily, the palace district fell under human control. On Dralkesh Secundus, a similar battle raged. The Dralkesh fought harder than the Altheri, their warrior culture refusing to accept defeat. But human tactics and technology prevailed. The outcome was never in doubt, only the cost. In the palace throne room, Chancellor Vrixtel stood alone. His guards were dead or captured. Outside, he could hear human soldiers moving through the halls. His colors shifted between anger and resignation. He had lost. His empire had lost. Everything he had worked for was ending. The door opened. Commander Soyan entered, her armor scorched and dented from the fighting. Behind her, 2 Marines kept their weapons ready, but not aimed. Chancellor Vrixtel, Soyan said formally, "I am Commander Soyan of the United Human Space Force. You are under arrest for war crimes. Surrender peacefully, and you will be treated according to the rules of war." Vrixtel looked at her for a long moment. He had expected to die in battle. This was somehow worse. To survive, to face trial, to watch his empire crumble around him. "I will not beg," he said quietly. "Not asking you to," Soyan replied. "I'm asking you to end this. Your fleet is destroyed. Your military is broken. Your people are dying. Surrender, and the killing stops. Keep fighting, and more soldiers die for a cause that's already lost." Vrixtel's colors faded to pale gray. Defeated. "What will happen to me?" "You'll stand trial. If you're found guilty of war crimes, you'll be punished. But you'll be alive. And why? Our people will have a chance to rebuild." He thought about that. About his people. He had started this war to protect Altheri Pride, to maintain the old order. Instead, he had brought ruin to his own civilization. "I surrender," he said finally. "I order all remaining Altheri forces to lay down their arms." On Dralkesh Secundus, High Commander Tavrine made the same choice. The war was over. 93 days after it began, the fighting stopped. The trials began 2 weeks later. They were held on neutral ground, at the council station, with representatives from dozens of species watching. Vrixtel and Tavrine sat in the defendant's box while prosecutors presented evidence of their crimes. But the charges weren't just about the war with humanity. Human investigators had dug deeper. They found records of how the Altheri and Dralkesh leaders had sent soldiers to die in unwinnable battles, how they had diverted resources from civilian needs to military expansion, how they had suppressed dissent and punished anyone who questioned their authority. The trials lasted months. In the end, both leaders were found guilty, but they weren't executed. Instead, they were sentenced to life in prison, where they would have time to think about what they had done. While the trials proceeded, humanity began the work of reconstruction. Dr. Yunji arrived on all three Prime with medical teams. They found hospitals damaged by the fighting, shortages of medicine, people suffering from wounds. The human doctors worked alongside all three physicians, sharing technology and techniques. This treatment will accelerate healing, Yunji explained to an all three doctor. We've been using it for 20 years. I don't see why it wouldn't work for your biology. The all-three doctor watched in amazement as a human gel was applied to a patient's wound. Within hours, the injury that would have taken weeks to heal was already closing. Why are you helping us? The doctor asked. We tried to destroy you, Yunji smiled sadly. Because we've been where you are. Humanity has fought hundreds of wars with itself. We know what it's like to rebuild after destruction, and we learned that the best way to prevent future wars is to help former enemies become friends. Chief Engineer Wu Jin worked on infrastructure. Power plants damaged in the fighting were repaired with human help. Water treatment facilities were upgraded. Transportation networks were restored. Wherever he went, Wu Jin found the same thing. Technology that worked, but hadn't been improved in millennia. You could make this so much better, he told a Dralkish engineer, pointing at a power distribution system. See this? You're losing 30% efficiency to waste heat. Add this cooling system here, reroute these lines, and you'll increase output by 50%. But this is how it's always been done. The engineer protested. That's the problem, Wu Jin said gently. Just because something works doesn't mean it can't be better. Let me show you. All across former Council space, humans worked alongside aliens to rebuild what the war had destroyed. Not as conquerors, but as partners. The Galactic Council reformed 6 months after the war ended. The Council of 12 became the Council of 43, with humanity holding a permanent seat. But the structure changed too. New rules were written. No more unilateral declarations of war. All disputes had to go through mediation first. Aggressive expansion was prohibited. Trade was encouraged. Ambassador Jawan stood before the new council for the first time. The chamber looked the same, but everything had changed. Where once there had been arrogance, now there was caution. Where once there had been certainty, now there was humility. We stand at a turning point. Gi Wan began her speech. A few months ago, this council declared war on humanity because you feared us. You feared our growth, our technology, our refusal to accept your limitations, but you never asked why we grew so fast. She paused, looking around the chamber. It's because we've been fighting ourselves for 10,000 years. Every war we fought taught us something. Every defeat made us stronger. Every victory showed us our flaws. We learned to innovate because we had to. We learned to adapt because the alternative was extinction. You wanted to put us in our place, she continued. Instead, we've changed the galaxy. Not through conquest, but through example. We didn't blink when you declared war, because we knew something you didn't know. The scariest species in this galaxy isn't the one that will fight. It's the one that will fight, win, and then help you rebuild. She looked directly at the former council members who had voted for war. You made a mistake. You admitted it by surrendering. Now we move forward together. No more ancient empires ruling over newcomers. No more pride preventing progress. We are all equals now. Welcome to the new era. Welcome to humanity's galaxy. The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Some species applauded. Others sat in uncomfortable silence. But no one objected. The old order was dead. A new one had been born. 10 years later, the galaxy looked very different. Human technology had spread throughout council space. Humans and aliens worked side by side on research projects, trade missions, and exploration vessels. The species that once feared humanity now competed to partner with them. President Minho, retired now, gave an interview in his home overlooking the ocean. The interviewer was a young Olthari journalist named Krevshin, who had been a child during the war. When the council declared war, Krevshin asked, "Did you ever doubt humanity would win?" Minho smiled, the same smile he had given when first hearing about the declaration. "Never. We've been preparing for alien invasion since we first looked at the stars. Every science fiction story, every military simulation, every contingency plan. We were ready. But what we weren't prepared for, he continued, was what came after. How do you help your enemies become your friends? How do you rebuild trust after war? How do you show people who tried to kill you that cooperation is better than conflict? That was the real challenge. And what's next for humanity? Krevshin asked. Minho looked out at the ocean, where ships from a dozen species came and went from the spaceport. We keep doing what we've always done. We grow, we learn, we improve, and we help anyone who wants to come along for the ride. The Council declared war on humanity. Humanity declared peace on the galaxy. Guess which one was harder to achieve? On the bridge of the UHSF Unity, Admiral Hyjin stood watching the stars. Her ship was special, the first vessel built with both human and Council technology. Her crew was mixed. Humans, all three, Dralkesh, Valpari, and a dozen other species. Admiral, we're approaching the jump point, her navigation officer reported. He was Dralkesh, young and enthusiastic. Take us out, Hyjin ordered. Let's see what's waiting at the edge of known space. The Unity jumped to hyperspace, heading for the Galactic Rim. Exploration missions like this happened every day now. Former enemies working together to discover new worlds, new species, new possibilities. Hyjin thought back to the Battle of Alpha Centauri a decade ago. She had told the Dralkesh fleet they should have brought more ships. She had been so angry then, so ready to fight, but she had been wrong about what they needed. They didn't need more ships. They needed fewer wars and more cooperation. And now, finally, they had it. The war had lasted 93 days. The peace had lasted 10 years and would hopefully last forever. The Council had declared war on humanity. Humanity had responded not with anger, but with determination. They had won the war and won the peace. Because humanity had learned something the Council never had. The most dangerous species in the galaxy wasn't the one with the biggest fleet, or the oldest civilization, or the most powerful weapons. It was the one that had learned to survive by fighting itself, that knew both how to win and how to help the losers stand back up. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity had intended. Somewhere in deep space, a new human colony was being founded. Humans and aliens worked together to build homes, farms, and factories. Children of different species played together in the streets. Scientists shared discoveries in laboratories. Merchants traded goods in markets. This was the future humanity had fought for. Not conquest. Not domination. Just the simple right to exist and to help others exist too. The Council had declared war. Humanity hadn't even blinked. Because they knew something the Council didn't. War is easy. Peace is hard. And humanity had always preferred doing things the hard way. The galaxy was learning that lesson now, and it was a better place for it.